I have installed and reviewed 6 different types of tonneau covers on this channel, and today we're going to compare them all and find out which one's best for you. Starting out with the aluminum hard folding category, we've got the Bakflip MX4. This cover comes with a mid-range price of $1149.99, and I gave it a 3 on the budget scale. Now there are cheaper aluminum trifolds on the market, but this allows you to fold it to the back glass for more bed access. I could only give it a 4 because with this folded to the back glass, you still lose a little bit of top bed space. I would say for most cases you can leave it on the truck, but if you need that little extra room, luckily it's easy to take it off. When it comes to security, I gave it a 3. Now, I am a believer that there's some covers out there that are tougher to break into, but let's be honest, if someone wants in bad enough, they're gonna find a way to break into any cover out there. This cover does have a tight seal, but if someone takes a crowbar and really takes the time to beat this to death, there is a potential chance they could get in. When it comes to weather resistance, some people may have different experiences on how it was installed. I'll be going by my experience with each cover. Being that this tonneau cover does have that tight seal, it really does keep the water out well. I had to give this a 5 because after taking it through a car wash, I really didn't see any water get into the bed. Moving on to the installation, I gave this a 4. Most trifolds aren't really that hard to install, and this one wasn't bad. I couldn't give it a perfect score because it was just a little more time consuming than others I've installed. On durability and maintenance, I think this is a well-built tonneau cover, so I gave it a 4. As with any aluminum tonneau cover, you do have the potential to get dents in it during a hailstorm or something like that, but I really do think you'll get a lot of life out of this tonneau cover. As far as maintenance, once this cover's installed, you can pretty much just leave it alone. Now, I can see some fading after many years in the sun, but you can certainly apply some UV protectant spray or wax just to prolong that. The last category is appearance, and it's a great thing to consider. I believe the Bakflip MX4 is a really good looking cover, so I decided to give it a 4. This sits flush with the bed, but you don't get that perfectly sleek look because you have the sections that fold. Next up is a vinyl folding tonneau cover option. The Worksport SC4 Pro comes with a much more budget-friendly price at $589 and gets a 4 on the budget scale. I was very excited to show this tonneau cover on the channel because it's the only vinyl folding option that I'm aware of that folds to the back glass. So like the MX4 cover for bed access, I gave it a 4. If bed access is most important to you and you want to be around this price point, I would get this cover over a hard tonneau cover that doesn't allow you to fold it to the back glass. When it comes to security, I had to give this a 1. Anybody can take a knife and get into this cover, and let's be honest, any vinyl cover out there is going to be the easiest to break into. For the time I had this cover installed on my truck, I never really got any rain in the bed. So for weather resistance, I gave this a 5 as well. Getting this cover installed was actually the hardest to get lined up, and I had to give this a 1. It's the only one that had different brackets for the latching system and made it more difficult to install. Durability and maintenance, I gave this a 2. This being a vinyl cover, it just won't be able to hold up as long as an aluminum cover, and the sun is not your friend. I would strongly suggest using a UV protectant spray at least every 6 months. On appearance, I had to give this a 2 because I'm just not a fan of how vinyl folding covers look on a truck. Staying with the vinyl covers, let's switch gears to a vinyl roll-up cover. The Gator SRX roll-up cover is a great option if budget is your main concern. Coming in at a price point of $269.99, I had to give this a 5. And for bed access, I also gave this a 5. You pretty much have full bed access with this pressed against the back glass without even having to take it off. Now, as I said before on security, this being a vinyl cover, it gets a 1. How well does this keep the water out? I had to give it a 2 because I did have water coming in near the tailgate after a rain check. Getting that cover installed wasn't bad at all, so I ended up giving it a 4. For durability and maintenance, I gave it a 2. Now, honestly, I think vinyl covers will last very differently among different people. Things to consider are where you live, how much it's used, and are you willing to condition it with some sort of UV spray. If you're someone that is in and out of your truck bed every day, I would definitely go with a hard tonneau cover option. But if you just want something to keep things covered and keep things from blowing out of the bed, then this is not a bad option. On appearance, with this installed correctly and pulled tight, it does look really good. So I ended up giving it a 4. It also gets a 3 if you're someone that doesn't like to see it flap in the wind while driving. It doesn't bother me, but the cover will flap a little in the wind. So let's meet in the middle and give this a 3.5. Next, let's see how an aluminum roll-up cover stacks up. The cover I installed and got to play with was the Bakflip Revolver. This comes in with another mid-range price of $1399.99 and a score of 3 for the budget. When it comes to the bed space, I had to give this a 4 because you will lose a little bit of top bed space with this rolled all the way up to the glass. For security, I ended up giving this a 3, just like the MX4. Now, I do think that security is great for both of those covers, but I tried to think of all scenarios. Like if someone were to try to squeeze a coat hanger between the cover and the tailgate to pull on the latch. Don't think that would be the easiest thing to do, but like I said before, if someone wants in bad enough, they'll find a way. For weather resistance, I gave this a 3. This does keep the water out for the most part, but I did see a little water get in after taking it through a car wash. Getting this cover installed was honestly one of the easiest installations I've done, so I decided to give it a 5. For durability and maintenance, I had to give it a 3. This is an aluminum roll-up cover, but it does have a vinyl top, so this could have issues down the road. I would also recommend applying a UV protectant spray to the top of that cover. Now, the appearance of this cover on a truck looks great. I had to give it a 5 because it has a nice sleek look, unlike a hard folding cover. Next on the list is an electric retractable tonneau cover, and this is going to be one of the more expensive tonneau covers on the market. The Retrax EQ on the budget scale gets a 1, coming in at $3199.99. This is a really awesome tonneau cover, but I would say the biggest negative about any retractable tonneau cover is the loss of bed space inside the bed. The Retrax EQ does claim to have the shortest canister on the market, but I still had to give it a 2. If you're not okay with losing a foot of bed space, then I would say stay away from any retractable tonneau cover. I do feel that retractable tonneau covers do a really good job on the security scale. I gave this a 4. You can open this electric cover manually with a tab on the inside by twisting it, but I think that would be really hard to do with the tailgate closed. When the cover is closed, it does a great job keeping the water out. I gave this a 4. But if you need to get into the bed after a rain and it still has water on top, once you go to open it, the water will fall into the bed once it's fully open. The installation of this cover gets a 1, mainly due to the time it takes to run all the wiring for the electric features. It will also take 2 people to lift the cover into place. It's not hard to install, it's just very time consuming. Moving on to the durability and maintenance, I gave this a 4. You can tell this is a very sturdy cover and very good quality, but I can't give it a perfect score because it does have electrical components involved and there's always the potential for things to fail. The appearance of the Retrax EQ is outstanding. I gave it a 5. Again, this appears to be really good quality and it does stand out on the truck. The biggest benefit to an electric retractable cover is the features you get that no other cover offers. The ability to use the cinch mode to lock things into place and the convenience of being able to open the cover automatically with your key fob. You can also unlock your doors, drop your tailgate, and open and close the cover from your phone. One last thing to consider with a powered retractable tonneau cover is the climate you live in. If you deal with freezing temperatures all the time, you could have issues with the opening of the cover. The RetraxPro XR is the last tonneau cover we'll be discussing for the manual retractable category. This is also a higher price cover, coming in at $2399.99, and it gets a 2 on the budget. For bed access, I had to give this a 2, and then for security, I ended up giving this a 5 because it does come with a lock. Now, I know some will say locks can be picked. Well, as far as tonneau cover security, this is about as secure as it gets. For weather resistance, I also gave this a 4, just like the electric option. Getting the cover installed was not really that bad, but I did have to give it a 3 because it does take 2 people to lift it up into the bed of the truck. This is also a solid option, and not having the electric features, you don't have to worry about components failing. So I gave it a 5 for durability. I also really don't see a whole lot of maintenance on that tonneau cover. How does this cover look on the truck? Comes down to a personal preference. I gave it a 4 because the slats on the cover are a little wider than the Retrax EQ. I just personally think the slats being a little bit smaller on the Retrax EQ gives it a more sleek look. Now, you may not have the cinch mode like an electric cover, but you can still lock this down in different locations, making it convenient to better secure cargo. I do also think you should consider the climate with the manual retractable, because if a big freeze comes, it could still be a little difficult to open up the cover. Now that we've gone through the comparison, here's a breakdown of how all the covers ranked, with the Bakflip MX4 ranking the best overall. I can see why that's a top seller, and I do think it's a great option for an all-around tonneau cover. But the biggest thing that I hope you get from all these comparisons is there is no best tonneau cover on the market. There never was. It all comes down to a personal preference and what tonneau cover suits your everyday needs. If the most important thing to you is budget and bed space without having to take a cover off, I would go for the Gator SRX. If security is a prime factor, I would go for one of the retractable options. And if you want the electric cover features, I've seen the Retrax EQ go on sale for $400 off. Well, I hope this comparison video helps you in your search for the tonneau cover that fits your needs. Until next time, we'll see y'all.